When you hear domestic terrorism, you probably think of punishment, arrests, prosecutions, prisons. But what if I told you there was a federal program that actually prevented violence before it happened? A program that identified at-risk people and helped them before they turned dangerous. And it worked? Well, that program was dismantled under the Trump administration, and the results are devastating.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Braniff, you previously served as Director of the Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships, or CP3 at DHS, an initiative created under the Biden administration to take a comprehensive approach to combating domestic violent extremism. CP3 prioritized public and community health programming to identify people before they commit acts of violence in coordination with federal, state, and local law enforcement. In your experience, how have these investments in public health led to identifying at-risk individuals and stopping violent acts before they occur?
Thank you, Senator. I'm actually perhaps the one person who has something to offer in terms of solutions today, and I'm really excited to talk about that. At CP3, we learned from the violence prevention community, the same people who for 30 to 40 years have been studying suicide prevention and violence against children prevention, intimate partner violence prevention. And we started to apply those methods and that evidence to targeted violence prevention, to try to prevent terrorism, hate crime, school shootings. And the great thing about this approach is that it's upstream, right? Violence is a universal human phenomenon. It just manifests differently. When someone starts to struggle, they might go answer seeking online, and they might fall down one rabbit hole, or they might fall down another rabbit hole. And after time, if whatever underlying crisis goes unaddressed, they might decide that violence is a solution to their problems.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we've heard allegations from both sides of the table as to whether there's more violence on the right, more violence on the left. What I hear you saying is that certain persons are predisposed toward...
No, Senator, actually, thank you for the question. All of us have vulnerabilities, and if those vulnerabilities go unaddressed, we could wind up being manipulated into engaging in violent extremism. We did 1,172 interventions. Think about that, 1,172 interventions for individuals who were exhibiting risks of violence. They were making veiled threats of violence. They were socially isolated. And those interventions were across the ideological spectrum. Some people were flirting with white supremacy. Some people were flirting with anti-government extremism. Some people were just flirting with violence for violence sake. The point is, we didn't wait until something terrible happened and then blame the ideology behind it. We actually did a therapeutic intervention, and in 94% of those interventions, the individual got help. And there was no violence. In 6%, they had made a threat to public safety that was imminent, or they had crossed a criminal threshold, and they were referred to law enforcement. So we supported those individuals, averted nearly 1,200 potential acts of violence, and never sacrificed public safety. We have a solution that's cost-effective, that does not violate civil rights, civil liberties, and protects our Constitution, and I would encourage us to look at that as a potential solution.
As you know, the Trump administration significantly cut the staff at CP3, which you worked with, which led to your resignation. Is that true?
Senator, there is no more office at all. The entire thing was dismantled on the final two people left on September 11th and 12th.
So the prevention effort you're describing to us is now no longer funded?
That is correct.
Are you concerned about the potential rise in attacks that we may see without similar level of inquiries taking place under this administration?
Senator, I've given my life to protecting the American people. I'm incredibly worried about the rise of targeted violence and terrorism across the ideological spectrum at the same time that we've dismantled the very apparatus that can prevent it. And we've seen 150% increase in fatalities from terrorism last year to this year. We've seen about a 70% increase in terrorist incidents from last year to this year. We've seen an increase of violence across the board, and I would encourage us to think about investing in prevention going forward because I know that it works.
An ounce of prevention, as they say.
Yes, Senator.
Well, I think that's an important lesson for us to take. The Republican members of this committee believe they're right. The Democrats believe they're right. The American people want to see less violence. I hope we all want to see less violence. This is one agency with an agenda directed toward reaching that goal, and unfortunately, it's virtually been shut down. If we're sincere about this on a bipartisan basis, let's do something to revive that effort. I yield.
Thank you. Senator Lee.
What we just watched between Senator Dick Durbin and former DHS official William Braniff is more than just a policy discussion. It's a revelation of how America continuously sabotages its own progress in the fight against domestic extremism. Because what Braniff describes here wasn't a theoretical solution. It was a working system, a rare example of government programs actually saving lives. And yet, it was dismantled. Let's take a step back. The Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships, known as CP3, was created with a simple but revolutionary goal: to stop acts of violence before they happen. Not through surveillance, not through militarized policing, but through something profoundly human: prevention and care. It treated potential violence the same way we treat mental health crises or addiction, as something that can be intervened on early before destruction begins. CP3 was built on decades of research from public health experts who understood that violence isn't just a matter of bad ideology, it's often the outcome of isolation, despair, trauma, or manipulation. When people feel unheard, when they lose their sense of belonging, they become vulnerable to extremism, whether that's white supremacy, anti-government movements, or just nihilistic violence for violence's sake. CP3 recognized this and used community-based intervention models to identify and support those individuals. And here's what's remarkable: it worked. Over 1,172 interventions were conducted. Each one represented a human being who was walking toward a dangerous edge, and in 94% of cases, they were pulled back. No arrests, no prosecutions, no headlines, just lives quietly saved. That's an extraordinary success rate for any government program, let alone one dealing with something as complex as violent extremism. But rather than strengthen it, the Trump administration did the opposite. They dismantled it completely. They gutted the staff, shut down operations, and effectively erased years of progress. By September of that year, the office didn't even exist anymore. This wasn't about efficiency or cost-cutting, it was an ideological choice, a political move to satisfy a base that viewed prevention as weakness and compassion as softness. And look at what followed. Since CP3's dismantling, violence motivated by hate, ideology, and despair has skyrocketed. Braniff himself said it: a 150% rise in terrorism-related deaths, a 70% rise in incidents. Those aren't just numbers. They represent real people who might still be alive today if early intervention programs were still funded. The truth is, the United States has never been good at prevention. Our entire system is reactive. We wait for violence to happen, then we overreact. We pour billions into security, surveillance, and punishment, but pennies into understanding why it happens in the first place. We treat violence like a virus after it spreads, not before. And here's the deeper layer. This isn't just about terrorism or political extremism. It's about how America defines safety. We've built a national identity around responding to threats with force, not foresight. The idea that prevention could be patriotic, that helping someone find purpose before they turn violent is an act of national defense, that's something we still haven't accepted. The conversation between Durbin and Braniff is haunting because it reveals what could have been. It shows us a model of public safety that's humane, constitutional, and effective, and how fragile progress is when politics gets in the way. When Braniff says, "I've given my life to protecting the American people," you can hear the frustration, because he knows what works, but he also knows that evidence doesn't always win in Washington. Imagine what kind of country we could be if programs like CP3 were scaled up, funded, and protected across administrations. Imagine if we saw every potential act of violence as a signal, not to crack down, but to reach out. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. So when Senator Durbin ends by saying, if we're sincere about wanting less violence, Let's revive that effort. It shouldn't just be a plea to his colleagues. It should be a wake-up call to the country. Because sincerity alone doesn't prevent violence. Commitment does. And that's the conversation America keeps avoiding. If you found this breakdown valuable, if you believe in the power of context, history, and truth, then make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe to Left Lens. Here, we don't just react to what happens, we dig into why it happens and what it means for all of us moving forward.